Hey Division agents, how's it going? This build I'm going to be showing you today is actually my first properly put together build. When I first started this game, and with some tweaks over time, it's a really hard hitting skill build. Doing missions, legendaries, even basic farming around the map will be easy with this build. Stick around to the end of the video where I'll be showing gameplay of the skill build in action. Starting off with the gear pieces, our mask is the first piece of Empress International brand set, giving skills 10% increased health, and the core attribute is a skill tier. Road of the attributes skill damage and skill haste with a 12% skill haste mod on the mask. I've used skill haste for all my mods simply because I would rather reduce the time it takes to get them back compared to the duration lasting a few extra seconds. Going to the chest piece, it's our first piece of Anihue Corporation brand set, giving skills 10% skill haste with the core attribute being a skill tier. I rolled in skill damage and skill haste with a 12% skill haste mod. The talent is Glass Cannon, letting us deal in amplified damage of 25% from the weapons to the skills themselves. The only drawback is damage we take is amplified by 50%. However, if you're smart about your cover and where you're shooting from, this shouldn't be an issue. Alternatively, if you're not a fan of Glass Cannon, you can instead roll Kinetic Momentum as the talent, as while you're in combat, each skill generates a stack by active or not on cooldown. Each stack increases your total skill damage by 1% up to 15 stacks per skill, and when it's skill tier 6, the full stacks that's about 90% extra. I won't go into what talent is better, there's a bunch of videos on that and I'm not here to start debates. But it's just really your choice, whatever you prefer. I personally just stick with Glass Cannon since it doesn't take time to reach max stacks. Having to wait for all those stacks to build, I'd rather just get right into it. Going into the holster, it's the exotic waveform, perfect for a skill build. Rolled with skill damage and skill haste attributes. With a skill core attribute, the talent alternating current generates a stack of 3% damage on one of your skills every second, capping at 10 stacks, giving 30% skill damage and max stacks to one of your skills. After 10 seconds at the cap, it gradually starts to transfer to your other skill, repeating back and forth. If you don't have the waveform, you can instead use a Wyvernware brand set, which gives you just 10% skill damage. Next we go into the backpack, which is a named force multiplier piece. The brand set is our final piece of Anihue, giving an additional 10% skill damage, rolled with a skill core attribute and skill damage, and skill haste for the mod. The talent Perfectly Combined Arms increases total skill damage by 30% for 3 seconds while shooting an enemy. If you wanted a more passive and laid back kind of talent, you can switch it for tech support, where skill kills increase skill damage by 25% for 25 seconds, and at skill tier 6 your skills will easily be getting kills. Afterwards we come to the gloves, being our second piece of Empress International, giving us the brand set of 10% additional skill damage. For the core attribute, I've rolled in armor just to help with survivability, though you can re-roll it for weapon damage, it's just up to your preference. The attributes are the same, being 10% skill damage and 12% skill haste throughout of the gear pieces. Finally, the knee pads, being our final piece of Empress International, giving us 10% skill efficiency. And it doesn't sound like much, but with that 10%, it's increasing the skill damage, skill haste, and duration, so you're getting all the bonuses in one. The core attribute is just a skill tier with skill haste and skill damage. Going into the weapons now, the primary I use and would highly recommend is the Harmony rifle. Being a named rifle, it hits hard, but the talent Perfectly in Sync is incredible. Hitting an enemy grants 20% extra skill damage for 5 seconds using a non-shielded skill, or damaging an enemy with a skill gives 20% extra weapon damage for 5 seconds. These are doubled while both buffs are active at the same time, giving you 40% skill damage and weapon damage on top of it all. This weapon can be hard to come by if you don't own one, so the test subject assault rifle is another named gun with the same talent as previously mentioned. It just doesn't hit as hard. For my secondary, it's no surprise but the exotic assault rifle capacitor, where the talent capacitance builds up a stack to a max of 40 by shooting enemies, where each stack rolls 1.5 skill damage for a max of 60%, though after 5 seconds stacks start decaying 1 per second. For each skill tier we have, however, we gain 7.5 weapon damage, giving us 45% weapon damage at 6 skill tiers. The stats can take a while to gain though, so I mostly just use this gun for bosses or individual enemies that might be difficult to take down. Its fast fire rate and 45 extra weapon damage helps a ton. Now we go into the specialization, which is of course technician, giving us some nice bonuses like 10% skill damage and 12% extra damage to drones and robotics, but the main one we get is an extra skill tier, letting us re-roll some of the extra armor or weapon damage while still maintaining 6 skill tiers. The skills I'm using are the striker drone and the assault turret. Being your basic sort of skill builds, you could switch one of these, but I would just recommend these two, they go hand in hand. Anyways, that is the build itself. I hope it's helped some people. I'm putting one together really, and take care.